Second thing is the scripture refers to her as a virgin. Is not on display. You can't tell by looking at somebody. However, that is preserved and valuable. It's a rare and sought after quality that depicts chastity. In the olden days, people who are unmarried, the way they dress, they usually have different dressing customs than married women, and chastity was something that was deemed very important back in the days, even could endanger a woman's life if it's lost. So we can infer that while not on display, maybe he could infer that from maybe her dressing or her conduct. And thirdly, hardworking. That was also visible. So another aspect of the physical assessment that Rebecca matches or meets. Now, being hardworking, this is a quality everybody desires. Not many are willing to pay the price for hard work. However, even though having the virtue of hardworking is highly rewarding. And of course, the fourth physical thing we can see from the assessment is that Rebecca was dutiful, also visible. It is a quality that sets people above their peers because it requires extra effort. So hardworking and dutiful are two different things, right? So when you're dutiful, it requires extra effort and intentionality to do what ought to be done without supervision or coercion. It reflects your natural devotion to a cause. And this is an attribute with a comparative outlook. Usually end the title dutiful because someone has assessed you. You have gone through an assessment process, and the outcome of which is either independent or comparative. What do I mean by that? How do we know that Rebecca is dutiful? She fed the man water and his camel water. Okay, good. You could say that's hardworking. The dutiful aspect is when he infers, whose daughter are you? And she states her identity. She doesn't say, my mom and my dad are the wealthy people in the state. Instead, she connects the part of her identity to the need of the man she just met. She says, there's a lot of fodder, there's a lot of providence, and there's room in my parents' house. Still going back to being dutiful, dedicated to the cause of taking care of him and his camels. She emphasizes aspects of her reality that matches that is dutiful, that offers extra effort and intention towards the man and his camels' needs. We can infer that the way Abraham is wealthy is the same way we could see when we met Lot. Lot was influential and wealthy where he was. And we can also infer the same thing about Nahor in where he is, but she doesn't speak on that. She speaks more dutifully on the needs of the man, what he might need from a family. She's assuming and being intentional based off the conversation they've had and the service she just rendered to the man. So that's how we can infer that she's a dutiful person. That extra step of you being intentional and you being dedicated to a cause without being supervised or coerced. So it's a matter of fact that Rebecca's first distinguishing quality when she arrived at the well before others, that's number one, being punctual, and essentially young ladies often come to fetch water for domestic use. So these are all the things. Another way we can see that she's dutiful, with which her commitment to come early, do what needs to be done for her family so she can wrap up on time, I presume. Another physical attribute she has is that she's homely. This is also very obvious, right? It is someone or something anyone can see that is effortless. It is a nature that cannot be framed or hidden. And this is discovered about Rebecca in the last verse of today's reading, where she said, and the damsel ran and told them of her mother's house these things, which is Genesis 24 verse 28. So we see that she's homely. She went out to fetch water at a timing, and then when she meets the man and has a conversation, I presume she takes the gift of gold and goes home to narrate to her family. So this attribute is core to motherhood and a large extent to faithfulness and commitment in marriage, regardless of the gender. So the family unit and marriage as a covenant, it forms a very core and vital aspect of God's reign and us as the children of God in the world, and also the functioning of society. So we see that she has the attributes not only just of motherhood, but as extent someone who would be a faithful and committed steward to God and also to her family. Now, making sure that we can infer that he forms a good match for Isaac, who is also raised in the way of the Lord, right? So Rebecca automatically passes the physical assessment, and yes, upon the completion of the physical assessment, we can see that Eliezer proceeded to conduct the spiritual assessment. So let's go deeper and talk about that. Number 1, the test of attitude. It's a test of her value system and nature. Remember, we said spiritual assessment is about a deeper test of core values to look deeper into a person besides the physical assessment of physical attributes that they have. So if you notice, Rebecca fulfilled everything Eliezer has set as her test parameters. So this lets you know the test of attitude is based on established expectations or standards. Now, what does that mean for you? That means that you too also have your own test of attitude system. What are the established expectations or standards you have that somebody else's attitude, behavior, or values must match before you enter a co-agreement with them or do anything with them or hire them, right? The second one is how to set an attitude test. Number 1, you don't leave the attitude test to chance. You have to be intentional. You have to set a test that will meet your goals. If you are testing based on, for example, this Bible study series we've had in July, if you're going to test trust and loyalty, if somebody is going to end up being somebody worth your trust and they themselves will be loyal, based on what we thought, you know the parameters of what you should set for a test. So you have to be intentional. You have to look at your goal or your purpose. You have to define the qualities that you desire. You also have to identify the standard required. What's the standard you're going to set? And you have to clearly state the qualities you personally want to see at the end of the project. Now, let's go back. If you recall, Eliezer, when he was praying, he stated what he desired based off the agreement with Abraham for Isaac's wife, right? He prayed to God. He said he desired someone who was caring, someone who was empathetic, someone who was patient, hardworking, and hospitable lady to become Isaac's wife. And of course, during the manifestation time, God granted his heart's desire. Now, so that is basically how you set an attitude test. Now, after you set the test, you need to now rate the attitude test. What are the responses you receive from the test? I mean, people who take this test or the people you test, what are their responses? Now, you then need to rate it in line with what you already set as your goal, your heart desire, and also your prayer request. Usually those 3 things might be the same or they might vary differently. It doesn't matter. But you basically have to look at the responses from your test against these things. If the result aligns with maybe your expectations and maybe the candidate or the project itself is on course, then you may proceed with your next execution stage. You move on. But one thing is certain, when you rate the outcome of the attitude of the test, it will either confirm what you defined or reveal or otherwise. So the outcome of the rating guides your next course of action. So let's go to